Happy Monday, everyone. I am not here today, as you can tell. Our girls are competing in the district tournament. I'm sorry, the regional golf tournament at Indian Hills in Murfreesboro. And, anyways, either way, whether they make it through today and make it to the state tournament or not, I will not be missing any more school. If they happen to make it to the state tournament, which will be really tough because the teams they play are pretty good, that state tournament will be over fall break. So, anyways, I know that I missed a lot, and I appreciate your patience. Um, Again, I'm probably gonna not miss even close to this amount. Of course, after the golf season is over. In fact, I will be here probably so often you guys will get tired of seeing me. But anyways, I do apologize. I know it does seem like I've missed a lot. Believe it or not, we're really not even that far behind. Thank you to these videos. I know that videos are not your absolute favorite things in the world, but it does kind of allow me to go through some of these problems where you guys don't really fall that far behind if you're really trying. Of course, some of you guys milk it sometimes and say you don't understand. But anyways, today you're going to be fine because we're just going to do a review. Okay, I'm going to make it real easy for you since this is my last day that I'm missing and it is a Monday. And of course, this is the last week before our fall break is over or comes up and our first 9 weeks is over. So let me please give you this plea to get any missing homework assignments done within the next couple of days. Why? Because on Friday, we're going to do some quiz and test corrections. But if you have any missing homework assignments, I will not allow you to do quiz and test corrections. I'm sorry for that. It's just the way that I am going to do it. Also, you need to be prepared tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday to make up any quiz or test that maybe you have not completed or you have not taken. Thursday will be the deadline because we are going to use class time on Friday to make up some of those and get a couple corrections done during class, which I very, very rarely do. If you feel like you have enough corrections that you would like to come in during homeroom this week, then that'll be fine. But just know you cannot do quiz or test corrections unless you have no missing homework assignments. If you have missing homework assignments, you need to get those done as quick as possible. So let's do a little quick review. This video will be pretty short, and then you'll have some time to finish this in class. Please get on Synergy and look to see what your missing work is. So we're going to solve quadratic equations 3 ways, okay? I've taught 4 to 4th and 5th period. We're only going to do the 3 that I've taught to both. These are your 3 major ones. So first, we're going to have solving by graphing. Then we're going to do solving by taking square roots. And then finally, we're going to do solving by the quadratic formula. So let's start with solving by graphing. These are so unbelievably absolute simple. Actually, I lied. There's actually 5, and I've been saying this wrong all along. Factoring, of course, was one of them that we're not doing here today. Graphing is the 5th, and it's probably the absolute easiest because all you have to do in order to solve a quadratic equation by graphing is literally look to see where it crosses the x-axis. So literally, where is this one crossing the x-axis right there on the left? Well, that's -1, right? Assuming that each of these units are, each of these marks are 1 unit. So what would it be over here on the right? Well, that would be a +3. So my solution for this quadratic equation is -1 and +3. Okay? Or remember, I've taught this. You could have also written your answers are -1, 0 as an order pair and +3, 0 as an order pair. I don't care which way you write it, but that is my answer. So look at this one. It's upside down. Doesn't matter. Where is it crossing the x-axis? Well, it's definitely crossing right here at -1, 2, 3, 4, -4. And it's also crossing the x-axis right here at +2. So my solutions are at -4 and +2. Remember, use brackets. That way no one will ever mistake that as a ordered pair. It's not. If I wrote them as ordered pairs, that would be -4, 0 and +2, 0. So either way, okay? That is how easy it is to solve by graphing. And in your homework here in a minute, you're going to have a couple of those, and they'll be just as easy. All right, let's move along. Again, quick video, that way you guys can finish this assignment before class is over. Solving by taking square roots. And remember the note here. It says when you don't have both x squared and x, you can solve a quadratic equation by taking square roots. Remember, our goal is to isolate that x squared. So what would I need to move first to isolate that x squared? Well, I would need to move the 18, right? So I would subtract that 18. Then I would move the 2, correct? Not the square, but the 2. I would divide by 2. So negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. And now, of course, we've isolated that x squared. We can solve by taking the square root. Now, hopefully everybody remembers what I've said over and over again. Because I took the square root of both sides, I have to add plus or minus. How does negative come out of the radical? As an I. And how about that 9? Is 9 a perfect square? Well, absolutely. So it gets to escape that radical as a 3. So my two answers are plus or minus 3i. Okay? One more of those. This one's a little different. Again, how do I know it's a quadratic? Well, it's squared. But see, it just has one variable, x. Now, I know that if I work that out, it would be a little bit different. But because that's the only variable, and it's squared, it's definitely a quadratic. But since that's the only variable, we can solve by taking the square roots. Now, this order is a little bit different. We can't subtract that 1 yet. Why? Well, it's inside that radical. Or I'm sorry, technically it is. But it's inside the parentheses. So I cannot move it yet. So instead, I'm going to divide by 3. So that's going to leave me with x plus 1 squared equals 150 divided by 3 is just 50. And now, of course, remember, I still can't move that positive 1 because it's inside the parentheses with x. So instead, I need to go ahead and get rid of that square. So I'm going to take the square root. We know that cancels it. And that allows me to get x plus 1 alone. Now, what do we say? We add plus or minus. Now, does I come out of this one? No, don't get in the habit of thinking, oh, every time I take the square root, I comes out. No. What causes an I to even exist? A negative underneath the square root, and this one does not have one. Now, how about 50? Is it a perfect square like that 9 was a minute ago? No, it's not. So I want to try to bring out the biggest perfect square that goes into it. Well, 50 divided by 2 is 25, and sure enough, there it is. 25 goes into 50 twice. 25 being a perfect square gets to come out as a 5, and then the square root of 2 gets trapped inside. So the square root of 50 breaks down to 5 square root of 2. So plus or minus 5 square root of 2. And then, of course, now, finally, to get x all the way alone, we're going to subtract 1. Now, remember, we're not going to subtract 1 from 5 squared root of 2. That's an irrational number. So we're just going to put it out in front of my plus and minus, and we're going to make it negative 1 because we subtracted it to move it over here. Plus or minus 5 square root of 2. Okay? So there it is. X equals negative 1 plus or minus 5 square root of 2. And that one's done. See? Easy stuff, right? Okay, the last one, of course, is the quadratic formula. So I hope that you're saying it as I am. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of this is divided by 2 times a. Okay? That is my quadratic formula. Now, what we did say is, before I can use that, I've got to have the problem in standard form. Is this problem below, the one that you see here, is that in standard form? Of course not. As you can tell, the 8 needs to be moved over. So we're going to subtract it to do so. So now I've got everything on one side, and I'm ready to plug those directly into my quadratic formula. So let's real quickly just make sure we remember what those values are. A is your x squared coefficient. Guys, what's the number right in front of the x squared? 3. B is your x coefficient. What's the number right in front of that x? Positive 5. And C is your constant. What's my constant here? Negative 8. So those are my ABC values that I'm plugging into the formula. Now I'm going to zoom away from that. That way we can plug it in. You have it there in front of you, hopefully. Here we go. We're going to go x equals negative b, that's 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's 5 squared. Again, I did not put it in parentheses here because the number is just 5. It's not negative 5. So 5 squared, b squared, minus 4 times a, 3, times c, negative 8. And all of this is divided by 2 times a. 2 times 3. That was pretty bad. Oh. So let's clean some stuff up. Again, right here, this negative b I can't do anything with. Remember I told you I wanted you to ignore the radical and just plug in the value underneath it. So I just want you to go to your calculator, ignore the square root, just type in that value right there. Now, I watched some people do this the other day, and you made a mistake there. You did not just type that in like I'd asked. Now, sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. Now, 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 8 does happen to be 121. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then on the bottom, of course, 2 times 3 equals 6. So here's what we have, guys. Because the square root of 121, since 121 is a perfect square, it gets to come out of there as an 11. So we have negative 5 plus or minus 11, right? That's the square root of 121 over 6. So I want you guys to just think about a couple questions. When I'm talking about the solution right here, does it have any radicals in it left over or no? Does it have any i's in it or anything like that left over? No. So what we have is we have a bunch of numbers that I can actually combine together to come up with real solutions. So here they are, okay? My two values, and I'm just going to do them over here on the right, is negative 5 plus 11 divided by 6 and negative 5 minus 11 divided by 6. So x actually equals what? Well, what is negative 5 plus 11? Negative 5 plus 11 is a positive 6. Well, positive 6 divided by 6 is 1. So there's one of my answers. And then the other one, negative 5 minus 11, is negative 16. And negative 16 divided by 6 is not a whole number, but it will reduce down to negative 8/3. Now, I usually have those separate, where the negative one is first and the positive one is the second, but it really doesn't matter. But those are my two answers, x equals 1 and x equals negative 8/3. And that's it, okay? So let's do one last one. This one's even out of shape a little bit more than the other one. We're going to subtract that 5 from what? The 9. And we're going to add that 2x to what? The negative 10x. So that will allow these to cancel, and this right side will now have nothing. And then let's see what the left side has. Well, 7x squared had nothing to combine with. Negative 10x plus 2x is negative 8x. And positive 9 minus 5 is positive 4. So here it is, guys. My x squared coefficient is 7. My b, my x coefficient right here is negative 8. And my c, my constant is positive 4. So 7, negative 8, and positive 4 are the numbers that I'm plugging into my quadratic formula. Here we go. Negative b plus or minus the square root of, b is negative this time, so in parentheses squared, minus 4 times a times c, and all of this is divided by 2 times a. Now let's do some cleanup. What in the world happens to negative 8? Well, it turns to positive 8. plus or minus. Remember, we're going to ignore the radical, and we're just going to type in the value that is underneath. Well, the value underneath this time is negative 48. Negative 48. Now on the bottom, 2 times 7 is 14. Okay, so let's talk about a couple things real quick. The negative 48. Well, I know there's definitely some things I can do to that. I'm going to leave 8 alone, plus or minus square root of. Well, hang on, don't do square root. What can I do to the square root of negative 48? Well, how does that negative come out? As an I. How about 48? Is it a perfect square? No. But there is one that goes into it, surely. I know, there's probably a couple. So let's see. 48 divided by 2 is 24. Do not try a perfect square above 24. So the first one below 24 is 16. Will 16 go into 48? Absolutely. It goes in there 3 times. So that 16 gets to come out as a 4. So I put it in front of the I. But that 3 gets trapped, so I'll leave it afterwards. So here we have this right here. Look, I want y'all to see where in the world I just came up with this. The square root of negative 48, we just said, turns into 4i squared root of 3. So I'm replacing it. I'm going to put it in that spot. Now, the bottom is still 14. So let's clean this up as far as I can. Let me explain. Now, I know that 8 here will not divide evenly. Let me highlight this. I know 8 won't divide evenly by 14. But what do you notice about both of them? They're both even numbers, right? So they both would be divisible by 2. Okay, let me erase that. How about that 4 right there and 14? Those are both whole numbers. Can those reduce? Well, yeah, they're both even as well. So every single one of these whole numbers that I am allowed to work with, remember I can't work with that 3 because it's inside the radical. So I got to kind of treat it like x. But all the stuff that is on the outside, all the real number parts are divisible by 2. So I'm essentially going to just break this entire equation right here. I'm going to break it down by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Plus or minus. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And all the other stuff stays the same there. I squared root of 3. And then on the bottom, 14 divided by 2 is 7. So my answer here is 4 plus or minus 2i square root of 3 divided by 7. Okay? And that's it. That's really all I can do with the quadratic formula and that problem. So there you have it. This was our quick little review. Looks like the video is about 18 minutes. So the sub is now going to give you guys the homework assignment, and you're going to complete it. You've got plenty of time. It's a review. And again, like I said, the ones where you have to solve by graphing, those should take 2 seconds. And then, of course, the taking the square roots will be the next one. Will be pretty quick. And then, of course, the longest ones will be those quadratic formulas. All right. Well, hey, you guys have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.